no, you know what? A topic of conversation, and I don't know that we can do it justice in this short amount of time, but we'll start our conversation. It has literally been on my mind a lot recently, and it is the concept of friendship and how I think as a nation, and I'm using that term loosely, we're sort of losing sight of the concept of friendship.
What do you
And
mean by that? Yeah.
part of me thinks it's what really made me think of this was, and it's just so silly, right? I was talking to a friend of mine, someone that I would call a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying to her, hey, I make a conscious effort to like your posts in LinkedIn to help you gain some traction. And she said, oh, I don't even post those myself. I pay someone to post them. And I said, in my mind, I was like, okay, so when you don't need me, is that what I'm hearing? Like, you don't need me to like your posts because when you don't care. But two, I would have been nice for her to say, oh, hey, I can do the same for yours.
Or how about, even if she didn't say, like, I'll do the same for yours, how about thank you?
Thank you. Right. That was
like, thanks. Like, I so appreciate that you're supporting me, or whatever. Like,
that's all. I was like, I know because she was having a tough time in business. She was panicking, as a matter of fact, called me in tears because she was having some stress about her work. And I noticed she was posting 2 to 3 times a day on LinkedIn. And so I thought, well, if I interact, because all of the algorithms from all the social media is based on engagement, right? So I'm like, so I will engage because it will help her get seen by other people, maybe people I'm friends with who need her service or whatever it might be.
Right, whatever it may be.
And I was just like, okay, it's a minor thing. But then I was thinking about this. And I was thinking about this because I have a group of friends that I know from a city that I lived in prior to this one. And I am friends with them on all of the social media sites. And I make conscious efforts to interact with their social media posts because some of them are very active and I support that. And then I realized not one of them in any way, shape, or form. One of them does sometimes support what I am working on in my posts. And I was like, huh, that's kind of interesting. But I even go one step further is I don't base all of my friendships on social media, obviously. I actually pick up the phone and randomly call people on my friend list to find out what's going on in their lives and to see how they're doing.
Yeah,
and if they say, oh my God, I'm getting a divorce, then I make a note, right? And I'm like, I'm here for you. And then I'll check in on them. Or, wow, your dad passed away. Oh my God, right? Oh my God, what can I do? I'm here. Another friend's mom just passed away. And I'm like, when's the funeral? Is it all right if I go? And they're like, oh my God, that would be great. I'm going. And I'm just like, friendship isn't just saying, yeah, we're friends, or that we're friends on Facebook, right? Like, oh yeah, we're friends. That's not friendship.
No.
And I don't want to see Facebook replace friendship, which to me also includes like the guy you're getting to know, right? It includes being able to be vulnerable in those conversations. I have a new boss. So I don't know if I told you, I'm leaving American Lung.
No, you didn't tell me. Tell me.
I got a new job, which is wasn't expecting to get a new job because, you know, my plan is to work on my own project eventually. But there's 3 organizations in Las Vegas that I would work for if they offered me a job, and one of them did.
Which one?
It's Hope for Prisoners.
Wow, congratulations,
Yeah.
Sherry.
So, and
That's
it's right up my,
wonderful.
because, alleviating the effects of poverty is my hot button. And what they do is they take people that are getting out of prison and help them get a place to live and get a job and help them to not end up back in prison
Back in
again.
prison. That is
And
wonderful.
that is a hot button for me. So I'm very excited. And randomly, my new boss, who is the man that started the nonprofit, called me Friday. Yeah, he called me Friday. And I thought he wanted something. And he's like, no, actually, I'm just checking in. Because I don't start until September 21st. And he's like, so tell me what you're doing this weekend. I literally just rattled everything off, right? I'm going to Def Leppard. I'm going to go see Metalachi. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to church, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then I just threw in very last minute. And it is the anniversary of my mom's passing. And every year I go to IHOP in honor of my mom, because that was her favorite restaurant. It is a horrible restaurant, but it is her favorite restaurant.
It was her favorite.
So every year on the day of her passing, which also happens to be 9/11, I go to IHOP. And then I realized I do post it on my Facebook to my friends, but I don't randomly tell strangers. And I was like, isn't it interesting that I felt comfortable enough to this man whom I have just recently met to rattle off what I'm doing in my weekend and to throw in like the bomb. Oh, my mom died. So I was just like, but that's how we build friendships. And then we find those spaces where I could tell you anything. Like, I'm not going to say anything that I have to edit out. But, I could tell you I pee in the shower. I actually don't pee in the shower because my toilet is right next to my shower. So I just walk in the door, pee, and then get in the shower, right? It's just in order. But I mean, you know what I mean? Those are, and friendship is looking at that person and accepting them for their quirks.
Of course.
And I have quirks, as we all know. And if you don't accept them for their quirks, then you may not be in a friendship with that person.
Yeah.
And I would like to see us not lose the art of friendship.
No, I think that's a really valid point. And I also think it's so, as you were talking, I feel horrible because I was thinking as you were talking, but I couldn't help. It's hard not to.
You're allowed.
But it's, I used to be really active on social media, and I haven't been the last couple of years. And an acquaintance, I would not say a friend, but an acquaintance had reached out. We were chatting and they said, I don't feel like I know you anymore because I don't see what's going on in your life. Like, they had no idea the things I had been doing because I don't post about it. And I made the comment, well, then we can talk. Like, you just called. I'll make a better effort because I'm terrible. I will admit that I am terrible at reaching out to people and staying in touch with people, and not intentionally. It's not intentional at all. It's just, and sometimes I'm sitting there, I'll be like, oh my God, I should reach out to this person or that person. But I do think social media is interesting in the sense it's like a tether, right? It's not the relationship as a whole. It is like one string, and it should not be that important, because clearly, whatever the majority of people, sure, there are some people who are super honest and confess, they have confession Fridays, or like, I've known a few people that have put things out that are very vulnerable on social media, but it's still going to be spun. It's still going to have a lot of thought behind it. It's still projecting what that person wants their audience or their people to see.
Yep.
So is it not real? No. Like, of course it is, but there's a filter. It's a filtered reality. But I do think friendships have just changed so much. Like, I remember reading years ago that I don't remember the percentage. It was really high, and you've got to take percentages with a grain of salt, but it's like 70% of people or what, like literally leave where they've grown up. You've left where you grew up. I left where I grew up. People tend not to stay in their communities of origin, especially in the US, because the US is so massive and there's so many opportunities and there's so many cities. And especially like if say you grew up in rural Iowa or Nebraska, and unless you're going to be a farmer or have like a bar or something, then I'm not
or
saying
take your clothes off,
or you can take your clothes
on
off
the internet. You can live anywhere you want. Yeah,
it's very true. But it's like, I think due to that, friendships change, right? Like if you and I lived in the same city, we would probably have I'm not saying we don't have a strong relationship, but if we got together and had coffee and, we knew the same people and had the same connections, it's a lot easier to sustain that than when someone's 3,000 miles away. And yes, you can maybe have an idea of who they're talking about and what's happening. But when you're not really involved, as opposed to people who stay in the same town, and I do know a lot of people that have, like a lot of the people I went to high school with all still live in Phoenix. They are still great friends. They've known each other for decades. But yeah, that art of friendship, I feel like with technology, the modernization of technology and people leaving and airplanes and opportunity in the last 40 years or whatever it is, I think, and it's not something taught. Relationships in general aren't even taught, right? Like parents aren't taught how to parent their children. We're not taught how to be children, like to our parents or sisters or siblings or brothers or even romantic relationships. Like it's just not something. Maybe, you know what, Sherry, maybe you could do like a TED Talk or do a master class on
friendship. That's actually, well, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and it's like, and what defines a friendship, right? Like, it's so interesting. So I think about some of the people that I know that are friends who I consider friends, but we're not close. Like it's a weird, like there are certain things I don't necessarily share, or there's just different dynamics of what the friendship entails. Like I have friends who I just do yoga with, like that we've known each other and we've always done yoga together. And we have like this shared commonality, but like, I would never call them and talk to them about the guy I'm dating or what, like we just don't have that.
Right. But let me ask you this. So just out of curiosity, I think, and this is where I think I am fully willing to admit I err on the other side of that spectrum, where I watched a guy's, $900. We're not friends, but like strangers don't do shit like that. Like you don't leave your purse and your phone and your $900 in your machine with someone you met 5 seconds ago.
That was a very risky move on his part.
It was.
And yeah, about you too. I mean,
didn't even think to do anything wrong. I was like, yeah, of course I'll watch it, because I'm way over here in this crazy area. So I do honestly believe that we are related. We are family. Like I believe that, whether you like it or not, Freedom, you're a distant cousin of mine. And I care about people in general. I like people, I care about them. So I admit that I might be a little way too far over, but if one of your yoga friends randomly did call you and said, Freedom, I need help.
Oh, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And
that kind of helps you define friendship in some ways, right? So yeah, there are people that I know, that I only do certain things with. Like there's one, I have a friend where I meet her once a month for dinner. And I don't call her a lot other than that. If we text each other, it's to find out where we're going to dinner or where we're going to have dinner. I have actually a couple of friends here that are like that. But I also, if they were to call me, she did call me. she had other things going on in her life. And I said, I can be there in 25 minutes. Let me get my phone, come over. And I'm like, I want to live in a world where people are doing that for each other, right?
Yeah, of course.
I just sometimes worry that, and I think a lot of it is because what I noticed about social media, and I actually noticed it originally from James Altucher, who had a podcast, James Altucher's show, and he was talking about how, you know, he posts all this stuff on social media so people can follow him and do these things. And then, you know, in a future, so somebody asked him a question, he goes, oh, I don't pay attention to other people's social media. I don't pay attention. And I was just like, well, now, so you want me to follow you? And I realized, oh my God, I'm not that person. Like, I might actually pay attention to your social media. And so I'm like, but that is the mentality that that's starting to permeate.
Well, and you know what, as like, I can't even help but wonder how much capitalism kind of plays into it, right? Like this idea that friends need, like, there need to have value, if you know what I'm saying, like whatever that may be for you as an individual, whether it's emotional support or which that's what, or spiritual support, whatever. And like what when we were talking about earlier, it has to be reciprocated. Like it really gets tiring if you were the one who's always the one who is listening and asking questions, and that there seems to be absolutely no interest in your life at all.
Yeah.
But there is this idea, I feel like sometimes, of, especially, and I don't know that it's just here in New York. I don't think that that's really fair. But I was going to say, I feel like here, one thing that kind of drives me a little crazy is you meet someone and within typically 10 to 15 minutes, they're going to ask you what you do for a living.
Yeah.
And I don't think that everyone is asking that out of trying to figure out if they can somehow leverage you or your network or your experience in order to benefit them. But there are a lot that do. Like, they are going to judge you based on your job and what you do for, there's no question. But yeah, and I mean, I think, and again, I don't think that's necessarily a fair thing for New York. But on the flip side too, like I'll ask people that, and it's more, I'm just curious because, like, especially if they seem like really interesting, dynamic people, it's like, you know, they may be an actor on Broadway or like a musician, or they may be someone in finance. Like, it doesn't matter. But I do think that regardless of whether you think you're going to benefit from them, there is, going back to what you talked about, judgment, right? Like what they're doing for a living does a lot of the time tell you something about them. And maybe it's not just what they do for a living. It's also like, what else are you interested in? Like, people are multidimensional. Like, I remember listening to a podcast and they were interviewing the CEO. I think it was Goldman Sachs, clearly a finance guy, and he like DJs.
That's amazing. That's interesting in and of itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I think I don't want to become jaded. So like I am always willing to, like, you know, look at these plank in my own eye before I point out the speck in someone else's. And I'm thankful that I'm able to do that, right? Like, I'm thankful that at least I'm aware enough to know that I am not perfect and I got to make sure I'm in check. And that's why it's probably also why I'm not afraid to do things by myself, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't have any friends to go, and like, there's no one to go with me. And I'm like, but there are people there, right? So you're not alone.
You don't have that. Like, a lot of people feel very self-conscious or, and I am one of these people, I'll admit this. Sometimes I don't want to go out because I feel like I seem to attract fucking weirdos that it's like, I am a strange, weird, and oh, there's that woman. I'm going to go talk to her.
Yeah. Well, and that reminds me of your story about the guy that came up and said, I'm bipolar and on the spectrum. Remember?
Oh God. Yes. I forgot about, oh my God.
Yeah. That's one of our little outtakes, that story. So, but yeah. And you know what? And then even last night, as I was talking to these two, Capitol Police gentlemen, which I finally did have to drag out of them, when they told me they were from DC, the first thing I said is, are you guys in government? And they were like, yeah. So it took me a few minutes to get out of them what they did. But it was funny because one of the guys said, did we meet him pre-January 6th or after or post? And the other guy answered, and I was like, are you guys cops? Because January 6th, that's who it affected.
Insurrection, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, but, oh God, now what were we talking about, sweetheart? Why does this
Sherry, we're old. We're not going to remember.
Why does this shit happen to me? Literally. Just.
So I'm going to give you take a beat to think about it, because I don't remember either. But I had the craziest thing happen, and I cannot believe I did not. So I'm going to take it like a side story. Sherry, oh my gosh. Okay. So this was just a couple weeks ago. The gentleman friend who I'm dating, was coming over here to watch a movie. And because we were watching a movie and hanging out, I had put my phone on Do Not Disturb because I didn't want it dinging and ringing and pinging or whatever. And had forgotten about it. And the next morning I checked my phone, and a guy who I'd been dating prior for a few months, and it ended back in March. I hadn't heard from him. I had not a text, nothing in 5 months. Had nothing since March of earlier this year. I look at my phone and he is blowing me up. Now, he had texted me the night before and said, are you still in Astoria? And I just responded and said, yes. Are you looking for recommendations? And he had said, yes, at the address to your apartment or something like that. And I responded and basically said, I am so sorry. I am not that woman.
Yeah.
I am not going to not hear from you for 5 months. And then you think I'm just going to with open arms, be like, come on. Oh, no, that is not happening. So, yeah. So the next morning I wake up drinking coffee and sitting on my patio, and there are just a slew of messages from him. I hate you. I love you. I'm so mad at you. Oh, you want to talk? Fine. Here's what I want to talk. And just, it was like this crazy stream of consciousness.
Oh my God. He does not know where you live, right?
So then he sends a picture of himself, not in front of my building, but in front of the building across the street from me, giving the building and the camera the finger. And he was just enraged and like angry. And I looked in my, he had called like multiple times. I've just never had anything like that happen. So I responded. And so this is what we were kind of talking about, crazy people, right? Like I knew that things were never really going to work out with us, but he was so nice. And like, I thought he seemed pretty normal, and it just fizzled out. Like it wasn't like a big fight, or it was just like, we are clearly very different people and not going to work. And I sent him a text in response and just said, I am so sorry that you are in so much pain. Because clearly it had nothing to do with me. It did not. There's a lot more going on. But I just responded and said, clearly you're in a lot of pain. And I hope for you, like, you take care of yourself. And like, I just kind of left it at that. Like, I wasn't mean to him. And a couple friends were like, why didn't you say like, never call me again, or never like lose my number and block, delete, whatever. And even my therapist, she was like, that was like a big boundary. Like, that's kind of scary. You should have literally said, it's not okay that you just showed up to the build. Like, I mean, even if he had come to the right building, I don't know. It was literally bonkers. But I just thought, he clearly is in so much pain, and he's clearly off a little bit, that me being mean and angry would not have helped that situation.
It wouldn't have.
And at the end of the day, I do think he's harmless. I don't think I'm in danger. I don't think anything is going to happen. And if I ever did feel that way, well, clearly then that would be a different story, and I would not respond in kind in the way I did. But yeah, that just happened like 3 weeks ago.
Okay, I'm going to put my 2 cents in on this. One is, I understand what you're saying. I would still like for you to be, alert, right?
Oh, of course.
Okay. And number 2, you have no plans in meeting or talking to him at all, do you?
No, never, ever again. No. I
think have you heard from him since?
He sent me one picture, and it was a really beautiful picture of like a sunset.
Okay.
And I just said, beautiful. And he said, yeah, it's Seattle. And that was it. Like, there was nothing else.
See, I think you actually took the absolute right path with this young man. So I think you did a great job, actually, because you're right. I mean, because he was looking for a reason to be angry and upset and mad and the victim and all of those things. And you took all of that away from him in a polite way, right? Like, I'm sorry you're in so much pain. That was it. I mean,
yeah, and I also felt like clearly he's unstable.
Yeah.
Right. And if I had been like, stay the fuck away from me and you're insane and like, that could totally send him over the edge. And for what?
Yeah,
I mean,
it would have.
It totally would have. And there's like, maybe this is selfish on my part, but I was like, I'm not going to be used that way.
Right. No, that's not selfish on your part. That's wise, my friend. You made a wise decision. I feel it's the right decision, and that is a crazy story. Jesus.
It was when I tell you, I could not believe it. I literally could. I was like in absolute shock.
Yeah, I would be too, actually. I would be in absolute shock. And wow. I mean, like, well, you dodged a bullet, obviously.
Yeah, and that's what was so odd and that's where I thought of it, was when we were talking about going out alone or meeting people, and I seem to have this weird way of attracting really nutty people. And my mom did too, so clearly it's like genetic.
Runs in the family.
Yeah. So hopefully, between the remembering that we were talking about going out alone.
Yep. No, I remember. I just remembered right now. What I was going to say was, I also want to be really aware that I don't want to be that crazy person, right? Because I'm very outgoing. I'm very friendly. I'm very talkative.
Sherry, here's the thing. I feel like you just have to embrace it. Sometimes you are that person. Sometimes I'm that person. Sometimes I'm sure I have been out many times. And when people are telling their story the next day, they're like, there's this wacky woman. Like, there's no question. I mean, in Chicago one time, I was in a bar and there was a Britney Spears dance contest, and I got up and I don't even know Britney Spears. Yeah. And literally took my shirt off.
You took your shirt off for that, and you won't do it for me here? Come on.
I wanted to get $100 bar tab.
I hear you. Good for you. Did you win?
I got second.
Is that a $50 bar tab?
Yeah, something like that. It was so ridiculous. I mean, the person that won literally knew every move of whatever, like the video, like they had been practicing.
Oh my gosh. Well, then I say more power to you, Freedom. Look at you. No, I mean, when I say, of course I'm the crazy person. I'm doing things by myself out in the world. It's kind of crazy. What I did mean was, I have been at a restaurant. It was actually here in Las Vegas, but I didn't live here at the time. I was just visiting. And the guy sitting next to me started talking to me, and then he would not go away. Like he wouldn't, like he was in my face the entire time. And he was drinking a lot, and because we were eating at the bar, and I finally just looked at the bartender and I'm like, would you stop giving him alcohol? He has got to go away. I mean, like and I'm like, I don't want to be that person, right? Where I am so irritating and obnoxious and overwhelming that the other person is having a terrible time.
So 2 things come to mind as you say that. One is you never really get wasted. You've never been drunk. So that's one, which is true. Huge, like in your favor. And 2, it's just like self-awareness, right? Like, and I think alcohol is so, I mean, it's a poison. Like it's so, like on the flip side, it's a lot of fun because I mean, there's no way I would have danced to Britney Spears and taken my shirt off if there hadn't been alcohol.
Yeah.
So it can be fun.
Hey, was the topless part required?
No, not at all. No, it wasn't.
So you just to get points, you took off your top. Is what you're telling me.
I was in the moment. I was not planning it.
I love it.
It was a safe space. I was in a gay bar, so it was like nobody there gave a shit. Yeah, they didn't give a shit. Yeah, so I was like, I mean, I don't know how to dance, so yeah. I had to go to lowest common denominator.
Hey, got you second. You go, girl.
I did get second.